credible allegations of a potential link between agents of the government of India and the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
I think it is Canada and its growing reputation as a place, as a safe haven for terrorists, for extremists and for organized crime.
19 ਨਵੰਬਰ ਤੋਂ ਗਲੋਬਲ ਬਲੌਕੇਡ ਤੇ 에ਅਰ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਚੱਲਣ ਨਹੀਂ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਜਾਏਗੀ।
Khalistani extremists are being encouraged all the time. I also know, again, this is my allegation, I'm not giving you any evidence on that. I also know that some of these Khalistani extremists and terrorists are deep assets of CSIS.
The Indian government hired thugs to terrorize Canadians.
Hello and welcome. My name is Zaffar Iqbal and you are watching the Mojo Story. Chickens have come home to roost for Justin Trudeau. 20 of his party's MPs have in fact asked him in a closed-door meeting to step down by October 28. They think his continuation will lead to electoral drubbing for that party. Already they've lost in 2 by-elections and they believe that Justin Trudeau is becoming very unpopular. Now, all of this has a context. In the past 1 year, the Canadian Prime Minister has repeatedly been making these allegations against India that agents of the government of India are responsible for killing a Canadian citizen who India says was a terrorist, Hardeep Singh Nijjar. And India has been asking Justin Trudeau and Canada to supply the evidence, but no evidence has come by. In fact, the Canadian Prime Minister, in a public hearing, later said that he made those allegations on the basis of intelligence inputs and not on the basis of any evidence. So every day there's a new twist to this story. Is it time for Justin Trudeau to resign? That is what his own MPs are asking him. To discuss more on this, we are joined by Major General Dhruv Katoch. Welcome to the show, sir. You heard it. Justin Trudeau is facing a lot of opposition, not from his rivals, but from members of his own party who are asking him to leave, to resign, because he's already becoming very unpopular. He's been the Prime Minister for 9 long years and he plans to contest the election one more time.
Thank you, Zaffar. Zaffar, the Canadian elections are going to be held next year, I believe sometime in October. I'm not sure of the dates, but I think it's in October. Yeah. And as per available trends, the ruling party is not going to win those elections. There is, of course, the factor of incumbency, and there's a natural resistance to incumbency, but I think it goes well beyond that now. And Mr. Justin Trudeau, his own reputation is in tatters. There are 2 issues, really there are 2 issues involved in what we are discussing. One is, should a prime minister of a country lay allegations against another friendly country simply on the basis of intelligence or what he presumes to be intelligence, without a shred of hard evidence, which he himself has acknowledged now after a lot of time that, okay, we didn't have hard evidence. And to make matters worse, because he didn't have hard evidence, he says, India should get us that evidence. It is like, you're trying to get a crook, a criminal arrested, and you tell the criminal, you get the evidence so that I can arrest you. No, I think this is the theater of the absurd. But I think the more disconcerting feature is, why was Mr. Justin Trudeau doing this? That I think is the nub of it. Why? Is it for his own survival, or is there something much larger and deeper involved? Is Mr. Trudeau being used by the United States as a proxy to tie down India in a particular narrative which suits them, which they can twist in a particular manner to force India into a certain foreign policy direction which suits the Western narrative? Is that the game? Because ultimately, when we are looking at this particular scenario, everybody knows what has happened. You see, but the latest twist is there are people there. One particular individual, this Sandeep Singh Sandhu character, who's been made the superintendent of police there in the Canadian Border Service Agency. Now, they say that we have carried out a background check and there is nothing against him. Now, I find that very hard to believe, because all the evidence has been given to them by the government of India. It is very hard evidence. Here is a man who is wanted in the cold-blooded murder of an Indian patriot, a man called Balwinder Singh Sandhu, who has been awarded the Shaurya Chakra. And he was killed in cold blood. He had become a teacher later. He was killed in cold blood. Now, why have they gone to that extent? It leads me to the conclusion, Zaffar, that what these people are doing now, they are creating certain assets who are Khalistani terrorists, and they are using them as instruments of their foreign policy, exactly in the same manner as which Pakistan uses them. And the aim is to pressurize India into a certain foreign policy direction. And I think that is a very dangerous trend. This one man single-handedly has destroyed the very structure, the very fabric of the India-Canadian relationship. And I think that is a very, it has been something which no sane politician would do unless he is doing it at the bidding of somebody else. And that is something which we have to see.
Right. So two essential points that you are making, that there is a method to this madness. It cannot be happening, just suddenly and all of our own. There is a concerted effort. One, that Trudeau's own unpopularity, he's trying to divert the attention of the people in Canada to a different direction, and also the involvement of the US. Remember that there is another person, Gurpatwant Singh Pannu, who is based in US, and US has said that an official of the RNAW in the past, who was an official of RNAW, was responsible for the foiled murder attempt on Pannu. And they have started an investigation, and India has also started an investigation. India is looking at the two matters separately. India says that US has supplied some sort of evidence, and they are carrying forward that investigation on that basis. But Canada has not given any evidence. So what you suggest is that there could be a possible link, because these Khalistanis have been active in these countries for a long time, but suddenly they are more shrill. They are taking out processions against India every day, and they are being shielded in the pretext of free speech by both the countries.
Zaffar, I would like to view this in the larger geopolitical context which we are seeing today. It is a unipolar world. The US is the major power, but there are other powers now which are getting into the scene, and China has made no it has made no bones about its desire to be the leading superpower by 2050. That is their stated aim, and they have made it very clear. Xi Jinping has made that very clear. So they want to displace the US. But at the same time, there are other regional powers also who are asserting themselves, and India is one of them. And this assertion by India of an independent foreign policy, which has been very clear and distinct since 2014, since Prime Minister Modi took over, that is one aspect of the foreign policy which I think nobody can deny, that India is charting a different course. In many ways, the foreign policy has been consistent. But here the change is it has become much more, focused towards India's interest. And we aren't so much bothered about what Americans or the Russians or the Chinese may think. Now, this is something which the US is very concerned about. And it was very convenient for them to sort of, label India into a particular box that, okay, you can do whatever you want, but on these issues, you will support us. That very famous maxim of one of the US presidents, you're either with us, in the Afghan war. He made that statement, even in the Iraq war, you're either with us or against us.
Right.
No, come on. We don't have to be with the US or against the US, all that India has to do is to be with India. Bharat,
right.
India is for Bharat, Now, right. That is something which they don't like, this independence of foreign policy, and to negate that, you will find that this disturbance which is taking place in India's northeast, the Manipur violence, you will see that the farmers' protests which are taking place here, the other protests which took place in South India when it came to the nuclear power protests, when you actually link up all these things and you trace the source, it becomes one common source. It goes to the West.
Right.
And why is it that so? It is not that they want to destabilize India completely. It is simply to tell India that, listen, we can make life very uncomfortable for you unless if you do not toe our line.
Right.
And we have said, okay, we won't toe your line. We will be friends with it. Just because we are having a different line does not mean that India is anti-West, as the External Affairs Minister has very clearly stated. We are not anti-West. We are pro-India, and that's a different issue altogether. So, which is why people find it very hard to believe that India can be a very active member of the Quad, because that concerns our geopolitical interest in the Indo-Pacific. But we can also be a part of BRICS, because that looks into our other interests. Every nation has multiple interests, and India has 1.4 billion people. So you cannot put us into a small little box and say you stay there. Now, this is something which I think the Americans will have to accept. The West has to accept, and not just them, even our other allies. If you're looking at the Russians or the people in West Asia, I mean, everybody has to get that realization that India is not going to be a pushover any longer, and we are going to do our own thing. Now, it is in this context, actually, that I'm looking at this Khalistani angle. They are actually using these terrorists, and they know they are wanted in India, as a tool to control India's foreign policy. And Zaffar, the funny thing is, you will find these Khalistanis, you will not find them in Punjab. They have got no takers in Punjab. There may be one odd chap there, but you see the Punjab has given them the boot. Yeah. You will find them in Canada, you will find them in London, you will find them in some parts of Germany, a little bit in the United States. You don't find them in India. So why are they trying to create this narrative? I think that is, it is really to control India's foreign policy, looking into the aim of the United States to remain the numero one power, and India is going to be a swing player anyway.
Right.
I think that is the game which is being played.
So you're talking about a larger picture. You're putting your focus on the bigger picture, on the context of all of this. But since Justin Trudeau is in the forefront of propagating that anti-India narrative, because he clearly stood up in the parliament and he was the first one to say that agents of the government of India are responsible. And then these series of events took place, and now it has ended. It's still underway, but rather the expulsion of the diplomats and saying that Indian High Commissioner along with other diplomats are persons of interest. It's reached to that level. The relations have touched the rock bottom. But is it going to help Justin Trudeau? Because the opposition that he's facing in Parliament, outside of Parliament, is worth watching. Actually, if we can play that small clip of him talking in the Parliament, but the Conservatives, who are his opponents, are asking him to investigate the matter properly rather than just speak about it.
Any leader who wants to take national security seriously should be able to listen to the information that CSIS wants to share them instead of covering his ears and going la 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 like.
Order. Order. The honourable member from Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, I'll tell you the briefing the Leader of the Opposition will take. He'll take the same kind of briefing the Washington Post got on classified information from the National Security and Intelligence Advisor and the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs. He'll take the same briefing that I got under Section 12.1 of the CSIS Act, threat reduction measures to reduce threats to the security of Canada. He'll take the same classified briefing that the Prime Minister has been all too willing to give to this House when it suits him, such as the classified information he revealed about Mr. Najjar's killing a year ago and other classified information revealed in the last several weeks about India. That's the kind of briefing the Leader of the Opposition will take.
General Katoch, you heard it. The members of the opposition saying that Justin Trudeau's NSA, his minister, actually anonymously briefed Washington Post, and Washington Post gave out a report which was, on one hand, they're leaking stories to Washington Post, and on the other hand, India has been asking Canada, Justin Trudeau, that please give us evidence. India says not a shred of evidence has been shared, while on the other hand, the NSA of Canada and other ministers are leaking stories to Washington Post.
No, I think that, Zaffar, it is that if you saw Justin Trudeau's body language in this clip which you just showed, it is quite amateurish, I mean, the fellow saying la 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 la, as if this is a schoolboy debate going on. He has actually reduced the Canadian Parliament to a schoolboy level debate. And I feel very sorry for them. I feel very sorry for the Canadians, actually, that is why the opposition in Canada, they are dead against him. The opposition, of course, has been after Justin Trudeau for a very, very long time, especially on this on the particular aspect of Justin Trudeau blaming India for the killing of a terrorist, of a Sikh terrorist in Canada. Now, the important thing is what the opposition is asking him is, why are you even calling him a Canadian citizen? You know very well that he has come into Canada on a false passport.
Right.
After that, after coming on a false passport, the correct action should have been to deport him. Not only do you not deport him, you actually place him into a position by which he's in a position of authority. And it is the same Khalistanis who have actually influenced the Canadian government and forced them to lay these allegations against India. Now, is that the way foreign policy, the Canadians are going to run the foreign policy? I'm afraid it's a very poor show. But now leave aside the opposition, because the opposition, of course, people will say, the opposition will say that. His own party is saying it now. In fact, they're simply telling him, listen, for God's sake, go. We are going to lose this election as it is. But if you are going to stay here, we'll never get back into power if this is the way our party is going to perform. So they are going to lose the next election, whether Justin Trudeau stays or not. But if he goes, then I think the severity of the loss will be less. He has to go. He's got. I don't see any survival of Mr. Justin Trudeau, especially in the manner in which he has behaved. He has spoiled relations with a neighbor, with a friendly country, with the largest democracy in the world, at the behest of the second largest democracy in the world, at the behest of the United States. And, it becomes a joke that we have three democracies, India, the United States, and Canada. And we are trying to fight against each other when all three of us know that the threat is not here. The threat is somewhere else. The threat is China. And Canada also feels threatened by China. But now, again, to divert attention from the public, because it was China which tried to influence the last two elections, or the allegations are that they influenced the last two elections in Trudeau's favor. And Justin Trudeau was trying to get out of that jam also. That, okay, how do I get out of it? He was trying to do that. Now, if that is the case, I think we should all be pooling in our energies to really fight the common, the common threat, I would say here. Tomorrow, what happens if the Chinese go and, if they attack Taiwan? What are the Americans going to do? So I think these are the questions which they need to ask, because India is a force for good. India is not an advocacy for war or violence or any other means. India is not going to go and invade any of these countries. But you see what is happening. You see what is happening elsewhere. You see the wars which have been fought, and India has made the stand very clear. It is not a question of taking sides. We will take the side of peace, as the Prime Minister has stated. So if that be the case, I think they need to have Justin Trudeau needs to have a very clear look into what he is doing. But if he cannot do that, I think the time has come for his party to tell him, thank you very much, Mr. Trudeau. You've done enough for the country. Now don't do any more damage. We've had enough. It's time for Trudeau to go.
Right. But he seems to be fixated on Hardeep Singh Nijjar and that case. While you say that these are three democracies and they have common interests, India, if we talk separately, it looks like that this is turning out as the bigger challenge. Since the farmers' agitation, this is becoming a very big challenge for India. isn't India perhaps also focused somewhere else, focused on Pakistan, focused on other issues, while this issue seems to be bigger and larger? Look at the situation that is developing there. The Khalistani terrorists, Khalistani separatists are taking out effigies of former Indian prime ministers, glorifying their killers, taking out effigies and burning those effigies openly. This is a bigger challenge, seemingly.
No, you're right. It is a big challenge, but I would like to just disagree on one point. We can do multiple things. We're a big country. We can deal with Canada and deal with Pakistan and deal with China all at the same time. These are not sequential events. And Canada, I think, is a very small sort of affair, which the Indian diplomats will handle. If you have noticed, the Indian Prime Minister has not given any statement.
Yeah.
I think one odd statement may have been given by the External Affairs Minister, but by and large, it has been left to a joint secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs to handle this affair, and that is just what it is. We haven't put in that amount of investment politically or diplomatically into this particular issue. The way we have put into the BRICS summit, the way we have put into our relationship, by getting the whole world to get onto the India's viewpoint that Pakistan is a state which sponsors terror. Right. So, India's diplomatic efforts and political efforts have been very clear into where it really impacts India. I don't think, as far as this the Canadian business is concerned, this Khalistani movement is alive and well only in Canada, in some parts of London, and, in one or two pockets as far as Germany is concerned. Otherwise, in India, it doesn't exist. And they are trying to rope in the Sikhs, who are the most patriotic as far as Indian citizens are concerned. So I think they're barking up the wrong tree. What has really happened, Zaffar, is there are two incidences which I would just like to say, why some people are getting jittery. One, Kashmir, where you are right now, is really a haven of peace, despite the fact, which I understand, that some killings have taken place of innocent laborers and all that, which will continue to happen, but it will get resolved. So Kashmir is no longer the terror haven which they could, use to pressurize India. So they shifted the focus to Punjab. Now Punjab, they're no takers. The farmers' agitation has fizzled out, right? What they were trying to do in the northeast, again as a pressure point in Manipur, that is not yielding them the dividends which they sought. Right. So you find various groups are coming up. When I'm looking at the larger part, there is the church which is involved, the Anglo-American church, right? There is also the left combined. There is an Islamist lobby. All of them have got together, trying their very best to destabilize India, basically to align India's foreign policy on a certain direction. That is not going to happen, and which is why I said, it really doesn't matter what Justin Trudeau does. We'll invest our political capital where it needs to be invested. This is being handled at the JS level, which I think is quite appropriate.
Right. And the US ambassador to India has said, we have said two things from the beginning. This sort of behavior is unacceptable from any country. There's a red line coming from an enemy or a closest friend. That's our first responsibility, to draw a line that murder for hire is illegal, and it is in every country. Second, we desire accountability, not just say it won't happen in the future, but that those who were involved will be held accountable. We always tell our Indian friends to focus on crimes, and when we focus on crimes as opposed. So clearly, US is backing Canada on this issue. Time and again, US has said that India must investigate this matter, although India has been saying, please share your evidence and we will certainly start the investigation. But if evidence has not come in, although leaks have been made to Washington Post and other publications, clearly Justin Trudeau seemed to be fixated on Hardeep Nijjar and defending Khalistani separatists who are openly espousing anti-India sentiments and making anti-India gestures out there in his country. India has clearly a multiple challenge to deal with, and this is clearly one of those challenges that cannot be taken lightly. For now, we'll have to leave it here. Major General Dhruv Katoch, thanks so much as always for joining us, and thanks to our viewers for watching the Mojo Story.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.